would not mind coming up here and giving the presentation at the top of the meeting. I know we had planned to have it at the bottom, but we'd love to just go ahead and have y'all come up here and tell us about access management. Yes, if you can just sit there, I'll turn those 2 microphones on. You can control your PowerPoint with the laptop there. And once you get settled in, if you could just introduce yourself at one of the microphones and you can jump on into the presentation.
Can you hear us? Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for letting us present to you. I'm Melissa Hayes. I'm a traffic engineer at NDOT, and I'm project managing this project to implement an access management study for Davidson County, and I'm here with Meredith.
Hi, I'm Meredith King. I'm a traffic engineer for Arcadis, and I've been working with Melissa and NDOT on the access management manual.
So we have a lot of content we could go over, so we have limited time. We'll try to keep it as quick and short as we can for your time's sake. We're going to talk about the project that we've been working on for the past 1.5 years, the manual itself, content summaries, and the key changes to access requirements that we're proposing, our proposed code changes, and our next steps in this project. And just as a little brief summary, these are all the main stakeholders that we've spoken with and presented to so far. We've had 3 main internal stakeholder meetings and 3 main external stakeholder meetings. And as a brief summary of access management, it's the coordination of planning, regulation, design, and of access between roadways and land development. And adequate access management can reduce conflict points, increase roadway capacity, reduce travel times and delays, and increase property values. So our existing challenges with access management in the city sum up to 3 main things. First, access requirements are located in 2 chapters of the Muni Code, 13 and 17. There are discrepancies between some of the requirements in those chapters, which has caused a lot of confusion, both with Metro reviewers and the public. So we want to try to consolidate all of that into one place in this manual and make sure there's no inconsistent requirements.
If I may, just for 1 sec, if you could bring the microphone a little closer to your face, it's easier for the folks, especially in the room, to hear. So thank you so much.
Yes.
And
yes. So access would be like a site driveway, vehicular access to a development or to a parcel of land. So the second challenge that we face is that we mostly reference TDOT's access management manuals, which are very thorough. However, they focus mainly on highest classified roads and interstates and freeways. So that doesn't really correlate with like the downtown core or urban context, and we want to try to draw in recommendations, requirements, and guidance for those contexts. And finally, and most importantly, we don't feel that our current access management requirements focus on safety. This is in the access or the Vision Zero Action Plan Strategy 2 to adopt an access management policy that is context sensitive. So we're trying to achieve that with this project. The text looks really small from here, so I'm not sure if you could see it, but this is just a little summary of the table of contents of our manual. We start out with an introduction of all of the access requirements summarized in the beginning. We go through a regular introduction of what access management is, what the purpose of the manual is, benefits, and so on and so forth. The manual is separated into then 3 main sections. 1, access design requirements and guidance, access location requirements, guidance, multimodal and downtown considerations, requirements and guidance is in there as well. And then we also have an administration chapter. And yeah, so I'm going to pass it off to Meredith to talk about our peer review and best practice.
Alrighty, so we developed this manual through the review of several different best practice resources. We reviewed 5 different peer jurisdictions across the country. We also reviewed local peer cities within Tennessee and TDOT's policies, as well as the existing Metro Nashville policies and plans for access management that are already in place. And then we also reviewed some of the industry best practices in the literature from sources like TRB and AASHTO and CHRP. And so from all of these, we culminated what we the best practices to include in our manual. So just to do a quick high-level summary of the spacing standards that were included across these different peer cities. TDOT, they had spacing standards that varied widely depending on context. So if it was on a rural, urban, suburban area, if the access was to be full or restricted, as well as if there would be a traversable versus a non-traversable roadway medians. So all of those variables came into play when deciding what the required spacing value would be for TDOT jurisdiction roadways. For the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, they had 2 different sets of guidelines. So they had a desired spacing as well as a required. Desired spacing was based off of safety principles that involved how long it took for drivers to react to what was on the roadway ahead of them, as well as maneuver and storage distance of lanes in proximity to an intersection. And then the required was stopping sight distance, so the amount of time required for drivers to safely stop to an event happening on the roadway. Next is Charlotte. Charlotte had a 20-foot spacing for median divided streets and 50-foot for non-median, so they their main variable was whether their median was present or not. Evansville, theirs was based on speed limit, and again, that stopping sight distance metric used by Port Authority. FDOT, they used the roadway classification, so whether it is a high-class roadway like an arterial or a lower class like an alleyway or a local road, and then the posted speed limit. And then Fort Worth, they applied spacing for non-residential driveways, and it was determined based on functional classification. So now we'll briefly go over the updated standards in the manual. So this is just going to be a high-level summary. This is just a high-level summary of some highlights that we've included. So the driveway spacing, we have a 25-foot spacing for single-family homes or 2-family homes, and 30-foot spacing for non-single-family 2-family homes in the existing code. And we have updated this to be more safety-focused. So these standards, we want to prioritize restricting dangerous turning movements and also prioritizing access on lower classifications of roadway. So we have provided a matrix that is dependent on whether an access is full access or restricted, so certain turning movements not available, and then what class of roadway. So if you want to have a full access roadway on an arterial, which would be the highest conflict form of access, this would require meeting stopping sight distance regulations. So that is for non-single family 2-family developments. For single family 2-family lots, we maintained the code for the most part, but we have created a 25-foot spacing on local streets to accommodate the smaller parcel sizes and the lower speed limits that are usually involved in residential areas. And then for collectors and RTOs, we'll have a 30-foot spacing requirement. Next, for access to intersection or corner clearance, the existing code requires 15-foot spacing on local roads, 50-foot on collectors, and there's not an existing spacing standard for arterials due to the low prevalence of residential developments being placed on these arterials. So when we updated the code, we added a requirement of 185 feet. Now, the manual is still not encouraging that single-family or 2-family homes are placed, access is placed on arterial boulevards, but we added a required standard for the rare incidences where that would be required. The next one I will go over quickly is corner clearance on a non-single family or 2-family development. So the existing standard is 50 foot for locals, 100 foot for collectors, and 185 feet for arterials. For the new standard, we have created a matrix, and this is very similar to what is provided in the TDOT Highway System Access Manual. So we provided different spacing values depending on the different classifications of roadways being intersected and how far the spacing should be from the intersection. So if you have two arterials connecting, it'll be a 200-foot spacing, whereas two locals connecting will only be 50 foot. So we're prioritizing that lower classification of roadway again here. And then the last one I will go over today is access to interchange spacing. So right now in the code, there's a 250-foot spacing requirement across all classifications of roadway. In the new manual, we will maintain the minimum 250 foot, but we have a desired preference of meeting TDOT standards, which vary for off-ramps or on-ramps. And I'd also like to note here that usually access placed near an interchange will be on a state route anyways that's already in TDOT's jurisdiction. So in those instances, they will already have to follow TDOT standards.
And we do have a little one-page flyer to give you that had all of those, so you can look at them in more depth if you would like. This is just a summary of our main multimodal and downtown guidance that we've provided in the manual. We try to heavily focus on avoiding access on and around bus stops and transit priority corridors, and prioritizing access off of alleys and local streets. And the images on the right of the screen you'll see are for garage entrances in the downtown where there's high pedestrian traffic, lots of vehicles entering and exiting out of these types of driveways with limited sight distance. So we've provided some best practice guidance for the design to increase the safety. One other thing that we've added in with this manual is an access waiver process that's a little more in depth than the existing waiver process. If NDOT were to deny an access point for whatever reason, the developer or a representative for the developer could apply to traffic and parking for their approval to override us. We've added in an access waiver form for them to fill out before they submit to NDOT for review that just goes over more in depth about what the development is, their trip generation, existing facilities, a high-level safety review of the crash history on their frontage, and then a comparison of the requirement they should be meeting and what they're proposing. So that way we can see a holistic view of what they're proposing, what their challenges are with not being able to meet our requirements. That way we can make a better decision. And then this is the last slide, I think. Our code change proposal is to strike everything that's covered in the manual and that is currently in chapter 13 and 17 about access requirements. Make a authorizing statement in chapter 13 to make the access manual the new requirements. And then we'll also add a statement in 13 about that waiver process. So our next steps are to submit the code changes for review. We haven't done that yet, but we hope to do that at the end of this month if we can submit. We're waiting on Metro Legal right now for their blessing, but once we have that, we'll be submitting. Where we also need to determine an implementation and rollout plan and release the manual itself. So there's a lot of information. There's a lot more on our project webpage. We have our peer city review and best practices on the website for review if you're interested in seeing that. The manual itself will eventually be on this webpage as well. It's on nashville.gov under NDOT. Any questions, you can email me, come up to us at the end, whatever is best. And like I said, I have those flyers. If you're interested, I can pass them out. Any questions?
Thank you all. Yeah, any council members, committee members or otherwise have questions for our guests? We'll go to Councilmember Allen first, and then I'll have one as well. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. Seems like there's a lot of focus on distance between them. Is there any recommendation on stuff like curb size? I mean, like it's a lot easier on a bicycle if there's not a big lip there, but sometimes there's. So do y'all, and like how wide the apron is and how much up and down there is, which is kind of a nuisance if you're pushing a stroller, those kinds of things?
We've provided best practice guidance for the sidewalks themselves and pedestrian and bicycle safety, but we haven't changed the design standard details that NDOT has. There's actually, I believe, a project right now to update those, but that's not part of the access project itself. So we're not planning to change that. Oh, and yeah. Okay. Okay. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else before I ask my question? Okay, and if one comes to you, just let me know. So I was wondering, does this, I remember that some years ago, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, one of the buildings that was constructed downtown, it may have been the Bridgestone Tower, not the arena, the tower, had their loading zone sort of faced a parallel street, and trucks would have to like back into the loading zone, and there would be people out directing traffic around a tractor trailer that was poked out in the street. So have we fixed that problem where that can happen in a new build? And B, is that within the scope of this, like a loading zone that interfaces with a street that way?
Or you want me to? Okay. So for the loading zones, we don't get too much into that in this manual. The loading should be happening on the private property. So that I don't know the scenario with that. So I don't know the history on that one in particular.
Yes. Oh, let me recognize, if you'd please introduce yourself, sir.
Yes. Chair, my name is Brad Freeze. I work for the Nashville Department of Transportation. So just following up with what was said by Melissa, yes, it's not addressed in this manual, but we do review operationally how those loading zones impact the street network when we look at our MMTAs, our mobility multimodal study, traffic analysis, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Got a lot of acronyms bumping around in my head. So yes, we do review those operational considerations and try to capture that. We do always try to capture as much on private property as far as loading, especially when you're talking about the downtown street network.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So yeah, well, thank you all so much for the presentation. Are there any other questions for our guests today? Well, thank you. That's kind of dense and there's a lot in there. So I think I need to spend some time looking at those matrices and kind of just processing it and thinking about it in some different applications. But we really appreciate y'all giving us an update on the project and look forward to seeing the proposed changes and full manual.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank y'all. All right, folks, so we now have 7 committee members present, so we will jump into our regular business. Thanks again to our guests from NDOT. Could you hand those to our vice chair, Councilmember Horton? They've got a handout, if you'd be so kind as to, I don't know how many they have, but if you could get it on committee members' desks. If they have 40 of them, then if you would, please. Thank you, sir. We have 8 present. Who's 8? Correct. All right. We have 8 members present for the record. All right. So we'll begin with our public comment period. We did not have anyone sign up for public comment ahead of the meeting. Is anybody out there in the gallery seeking to address the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee with a public comment? I am seeing none, so we'll declare the public comment period closed. We have a number of items on the agenda, all of which I have contemplated as part of a proposed consent agenda. So I'm proposing that every item on the agenda, I'm looking at you, Councilmember Evans Siegel, is on the proposed consent agenda. Does anything need to come off of the proposed consent agenda? All right, I'm going to read the captions, and if something catches your ear and you want to remove it, you can let me know after I'm done reading them. So first, for the proposed consent agenda, we have committee item 1. This is RS 2025-1279, a resolution accepting a donation from In-N-Out Burger in the amount of $300,000 as a contribution toward infrastructure improvements, and that is by Porterfield, Parker, and Welsh. Committee item 2, RS 2025-1280-1280 by Gamble and Parker, a resolution to amend ordinance number BL 2024-636 to authorize the Metropolitan Government in Nashville and Davidson County to modify the linear feet of sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements to be accepted for property located at 1000 Rivergate Parkway, also known as In-N-Out Burger Revision 1. Committee item 3, RS 2025-1281 by Parker and Gamble. A resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to accept new public sanitary sewer main and sanitary sewer manhole for 8 properties located on Jones Avenue and Chickasaw Avenue, also known as Chickasaw Village. Committee item 4, RS 2025-1282 by Gamble and Parker, a resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to accept a new sanitary sewer manhole for property located at 3509 Charlotte Avenue, number 406. Committee item 5, RS 2025-1283 by Gamble and Parker, a resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to accept new public water main and fire hydrant assembly for property located at Robertson Avenue, unnumbered, also known as 5705 through 5707 Robertson. Committee item 6, RS 2025-1284 by Evans, Gamble, and Parker, a resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to abandon existing public water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assembly, and sanitary sewer manhole, and to accept new public water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assembly, and sanitary sewer manhole for 20 properties located on Misty Cape Cove. Committee item 7, this is RS 2025-1285 by Ewing, Gamble, Parker, and Gadd. This is a resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to accept new public water main and fire hydrant assembly for property located at 2121 Crestmore Road, also known as 2121 Crestmore Mixed Use. Next, we have Committee Item 8. This is RS 2025-1286 by Gamble, Parker, and Eastlick. A resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to abandon existing public water main and to accept new public water and sanitary sewer main and sanitary sewer manholes for property located at 1109 Riverside Road. Committee Item 9, this is RS 2025-1287 by Gamble and Parker. This is a resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to abandon existing sanitary sewer main and to accept new sanitary sewer main and a new sanitary sewer manhole for 3 properties located at 3701, 3707, and 3705 Gallatin Pike. Committee Item 10, we're on bills on second reading now. This is BL 2025-840 by Webb, Gamble, Hill, Parker, and Welsh. This is an ordinance approving a donation of a 1.88 acre parcel, an access and parking easement, and a participation agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation and GS Rivergates Apartment LLC for park improvements at 300 Conair Drive. Committee Item 11, this is BL 2025-841 by Taylor and Parker. This is an ordinance providing the honorary street name designation of Dr. J. Lucius Fitzgerald Senior Way for a portion of Underwood Street. Committee Item 12, this is BL 2025-842 by Porterfield, Parker, Welsh, Bradford, Allen, and Evan Siegel. An ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County acting by and through the Metropolitan Department of Water and Sewerage Services to enter into an agreement with Cumberland River Compact to continue to fund initiatives established as the result of the consent decree with the Department of Justice of the United States and the state of Tennessee. Committee Item 13, this is BL 2025-843 by Cap, Parker, and Gamble. This is an ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to abandon easement rights for property located at 730 Main Street, formerly the Easterly South 8th Street right-of-way. Committee Item 14, this is BL 2025-844 by Gamble and Parker, an ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to accept new public sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for property located at Fly Road, unnumbered in Williamson County, also known as Storyvale Phase 2B. Lastly, we have Committee Item 15. This is BL 2025-845 by Coop, Gamble, and Parker. This is an ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County to abandon existing public combination sewer mains and easements and to accept new public combination and sanitary sewer mains, combination and sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for property located at 1221 Grundy Street, also known as Grundy Sewer Infrastructure. Having heard the captions of the proposed consent agenda items, does anything further need to be removed for discussion, questions, comments, anything of that nature? Seeing none, could we get a motion and a second on the, all right, consent agenda has been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye. Any opposed? Any not voting? All right, recommend approval, is it 8? 8 in favor, 0 against of all items on our agenda, 0 not voting. Just got a couple of notes here for us before we adjourn. The administration's Transportation Advisory Committee had its first meeting today. I definitely encourage folks to go back on Metro YouTube and watch that meeting. We get to hear from Sabrina Sussman, the Chief Program Officer. It's the most I've heard from her so far, which is really cool to hear her perspective on things and on the work. It's a really good discussion, a lengthy meeting, so maybe watch it at 1.5 times speed if you can tolerate that, but it's definitely worth checking out. I also wanted to highlight, we had several council members that attended Walk Bike Nashville's Tour de Nash. So thanks everybody who made it out. And next year, maybe we'll even be able to get a few more members out for that ride. But there was a really cool thing this year where they had a smaller 5-mile open streets loop that was like very family friendly, very accessible. It was a huge hit. I got to ride a little bit of it doing the 25 with a couple of colleagues, but they are going to bring that open streets inner loop back 3 times this summer. So it's the third Sunday of June, July, and August. So that ends up being June 15th, July 20th, and August 17th. So from noon to 5, each of those dates, there's going to be a big open streets loop around downtown, and it's extremely cool. I hope everybody can make it down, come walk around, bring the kids, bring some bikes. It's going to be a very good time. So I'll look forward to seeing everybody there. Again, June 15th is the first one, and it's going to be from noon to 5. Any other updates from committee members that you would like to share? All right, I am seeing none, so I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank y'all.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.